Hello, everybody. That's the beginning of another week. It's Monday on Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Joining me is Tony the Calf on the panel and Brian. Anybody else? If you're interested, just check us out on YouTube and look at the show description, and you can click on the link and you can be in the studio just as fast as everybody else. You know, occasionally I get comments after a program. I always get some comments, but things that are general, and I answer every comment that you write down. So if you're ever in a situation where, you're not live watching the show and you want to ask a question, I'll answer it because that's what I do. We have a regular guy who's in the chat room, who's a really good guy. We actually have had him on the program, now that I think about it. He goes by the handle in the chat room of General Dog. And General Dog's a big Browns fan.
Oh, Lears. Lears.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And he asked a question. And I want to be able to answer his question in great depth, because I think it's a question that a lot of people are asking. His question was, after watching the show, who gives a fuck about the Cavs? That was his comment. So I'm going to answer his question.
The people
First,
go to the stadium?
I do. Okay?
No.
And second of all, a lot of noisy fans who are watching really good basketball this year. And the 1.5 million people who showed up after the World Championship, something that the championship is not something that Browns fans can say they've witnessed. Witnessed used as forget it. You understand. There are a lot of people who give a fuck about the Cavaliers, but the problem is, in Cleveland, the most vociferous fans are Browns fans. And they're the most passionate. And now that we've reached the point of saturation in social media, the most driven to having split personalities, multiple personalities, and all kinds of things. This is a Northeast Ohio sports podcast. It is not strictly a Cleveland Browns football show. So this is all part of an answer to a question. A lot of people dump off the show once I stop talking about the Browns. But my feeling is you should be giving a fuck not only about the Cavaliers, but about the Browns and even the Guardians, for God's sakes, even though I shake my big furry cow head and wonder what in the hell they're doing because they're not fielding a professional product. Who gives a fuck about the Cavs? The city of Cleveland does, for its revenue base. People who own bars and restaurants in the downtown area. Ask them what life was like when sports weren't around, when professional football wasn't in Cleveland. Ask them about it. They give a fuck about the Cavs. Why do you think the renaissance of downtown in Cleveland took place? I was in Cleveland when the Jake was new. Sorry, I know what it's called now, but it's always the Jake to me because I was there when it was new.
I still call it Jacobs Field. I don't give a shit what they rename it. It's still Jacobs Field.
Municipal Stadium was this old, dying thing that only cheapskate Art Modell wanted to keep around. It looked like the remains of Stonehenge, except with a lot of people pissing all over it. Horrible, horrible environment.
Yeah, but they were mostly Steelers fans, so it's okay.
I'd like to tell you that, but 80,000 fans rocking that old stadium and the bathrooms. You didn't want to go to the bathroom. You think COVID's bad. Who knows what you could have got?
No, my parents have told stories about being essentially frozen in place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Some
I
of
mean,
life's best
And there were
memories
no
are made at the trough.
and back in the 60s, there were no January games, folks. This
Yeah.
was all ending in December. And usually they were playing in a championship game. Win, lose, or draw. So,
So I guess what I'm saying is there are a lot of people who give a fuck about this. And let me explain to you why this group of Cleveland Browns fans, if you want to call them Browns fans, I call them more adjutants than fans. And I'm not saying that General Dog is an adjutant as far as Browns fans are concerned. But with the tunnel vision that you display when you make a comment like that on a program, it tells me that you're really, you don't care for basketball. I get that. But there's something more to it than that. The reason we do a program is we want to support sports in Northeast Ohio because I know, we all know firsthand what it's like when it goes away. And it is not something that I think any of us want to go through again. And all the petty harping and bitching about whether it's Baker Mayfield or whether it's about the Guardians or whether it's about LeBron James still, which, and that's the amazing thing. You have a Cavaliers team that is, I eat gluten-free. This team is LeBron-free. There is no LeBron anymore. LeBron is in California. LeBron is 37 years old. I love LeBron James for what he brought to Cleveland, the energy and the passion, but he's gone and he's not part of the team that we talk about. And to sit there and go, yeah, I never let him back. I never let him come back. It's like, you're just a bunch of fucking assholes. Nobody's even bringing up the specter.
Nobody is charged.
Yeah. I mean, no, nobody is even bringing up the specter. If you're watching the Cavaliers right now, the fans are screaming, jumping, and yelling just as much as the championship year. It's amazing what's going on with that team. And if you don't like it, you don't have to like, but don't ask me who gives a fuck about them. The Cleveland Cavaliers do everything that the Cleveland Browns don't, General Dog. They're a group of men who are playing together. They're playing as hard as they can. They're all Nick Chubbs. Every last one of them's a Nick Chubb. And not a John Johnson III. We've got guys out there who are not the most talented. They're not the hype names. Couldn't get but one on the All-Star team because they don't have any name. They don't have any reputation in the league. And we know that it's a reputation league. But something.
There's going to be 2 Cavs on the All-Star team.
No, that's been already selected.
No, Draymond Green is a reserve, and he hasn't played for 3/4 of the season. So the rumor is
no. They've replaced Draymond Green and they've replaced Kevin Durant and the people who. Oh yeah.
Allen was going to be replaced.
Yeah, let me bring this up. LaMelo Ball is in, and DeJounte Murray is in. Yeah.
Jesus.
LaMelo Ball because he whiffed a scent of Michael Jordan's penis. I don't know why, but what I know is that Cleveland's never going to get any love. The Cavaliers as an organization didn't get any love when they were winning championships and were in the playoffs every year. And I can't believe Cleveland Browns fans saying, who give a fuck about them? They're the team who's given us the most exciting sports in Cleveland in the last, why don't we say 14 years? Or Scooby would go,
Well, the Indians did play in a 7-game series against the Cubs. That was fairly exciting.
You knew they'd lose, though.
Yeah.
It's the permeation.
It was still exciting. I mean, it still had national attention.
It was.
It's the permeation of losing that has been the Browns since they came back that has festered this hidden jealousy. towards anything that's successful, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, the fans are embittered to the point where they're going to, well, fuck the Cavaliers. I don't watch that. I'm a Browns fan. That's like, I use the white restroom. I mean, we can't be this fucking narrow, folks. This is a team that is really trying its heart out there. And you know how many double-digit points deficits they've overcome? And yesterday,
20 last night, and they won the game by 15.
The coup de grace. I mean, I was sitting there, and we're down by 7 at the half, and I'm like, we were down more than that. We were down
the first quarter, and I'm like, geez.
20 in the first quarter, and then by the halftime, I think we were down 11 or 13 points, and then in the fourth quarter, going into the fourth, we were down 7 points.
And Jenny Osmond just starts fucking throwing fucking schizophrenic.
Somebody threw a switch on. And, I was sitting there watching this. Well, what happened was I had to switch TVs because I was finishing up eating, and I don't like to sit for too long because of my back. And so I wanted to lay down in bed, and I had it all set up in there. And I zipped on into the bedroom. And in the time it took, because there's a little different delay on the two televisions, because one is like HDMI and Etherneted right in, it's hooked right up. The other one is living on Wi-Fi, and it is a more distant thing from the. Actually, it's from the server on DirecTV. We have a wireless setup. And in that delay, by the time I went for the fucking chair, and I got up as soon as I saw that woman say, "I want to see you, and I can't get okay? I figured I had time to get the fuck out of there, so I didn't have to see her again, winking at me, some MILF winking at me,
Right.
So I run into, and she trying to look like Carrie Bradshaw, but with way too much bronzer on. All right. And I'm like, make this stop. I'm not buying a Kia, and I'm not buying it from anybody who's fucking that. I'm sorry. I have my principles. By the time I get to the bedroom, it's 68, 67. What the hell did I miss? I got there just in time to watch the Cavaliers take the lead and then proceed to go on a 19-0 scoring spurt. Oh, God. And I'm sitting there going, all these Browns fans, Baker can't come back from behind. Shut the fuck up. Shut your pie hole. Sit down, son, and watch how it's done. By a bunch of 21, 22, 23-year-olds with a couple of veterans like Kevin Love and Rondo. I couldn't believe Rondo. The Magpie came to life. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Heckle became Jekyll.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, unreal. 15 and 12 for Rondo. Rondo driving to the basket. Rondo reverse layups. Rondo hitting threes. I'm going, holy cannoli. What next?
Let's ride.
Yeah, and meanwhile, our announcers were having a good time, but they weren't like the Hornets announcers who were just absolute assholes.
Oh,
hey, Brian, you got a friend here? Brian's friend.
Oh,
Type
God.
in who you are into the chat, Brian's friend, so we don't blindside Brian, because if he's having some kind of
a friend named Tyler, Brian?
Not since like the 8th grade, and he committed suicide in 1988. So,
That's so fucking read that.
I doubt it's a ghost in the machine.
What do you want to talk about, Brian's friend? Just type into the chat room. And if you want to talk about something, I mean, I'm more than happy to let you in because we're very inclusive here. And
I bet I know what this is.
what is it?
More porn.
You think it's okay. Well, as long as he doesn't type anything in, he's not going to get in here. So, all right. So at any rate, there is, I suppose, no reason to keep this fellow around here. So let's go ahead and kick him. Break the groin. Bye-bye now. We have a team here that plays with a ton of heart. It's young, and it's getting better. We led the league early on in the season in giving up double-digit leads. Now the team is developing the character to keep its composure and win close games, even though some of them, like in the Charlotte game, were literally, they tried to steal from the Cavaliers for no good reason and then came out the next day. Wouldn't that have been something if the Cavs had lost that game and that statement would have come out? No, the refs got it all screwed up.
Yeah.
Well, Tony's friend is really trying to,
Oh, now he's Tony's friend.
Oh, he's Tony's friend now.
Yeah.
Oh, is there something we should know about?
Yeah.
All right. Well, at any rate, now that you've changed your identity and changed your name, now
he's going to come back as Mr. Moohead's friend. Oh.
Yeah, Banhammer. But all the things you complain about the Browns, they don't pay attention to detail. They're not detail oriented. They're doing their own thing and they're not playing together as a team. And they're selfish and they can't come back from behind and they fall apart when the game's close. All these things, and you refuse to watch the Cavaliers. That makes you narrow, very narrow. And now the Cavaliers have gotten Karis Levert. Now, you're like, oh, who's Karis Levert? But this is a considered acquisition prior to the trade deadline. Guy who played for the Nets in the beginning of what was supposed to be the great rebirth that never has happened in Brooklyn. And what are they? 9 games in a row they've lost, Brooklyn?
Yeah, it's been something.
Since Kyrie said, I'll play. So he used to play with Jared Allen. And Jared got out and came to Cleveland. Now Karis Levert's coming to Cleveland. He also, in between, played in Indiana, which, of course, is, you saw it with your own eyes. It's kind of, and I know they didn't have their full team, but even if they had Malcolm Brogdon, if they, the guys they have on that team, it wasn't working when they were healthy either. And Carlisle can be a very polarizing coach. He can be very difficult to play for.
Right, the dick.
Yeah, he's got a history of being difficult to play for. So Karis Levert gets moved to the Cavaliers for basically a protected first-round 2022 draft pick, and that's expected to be somewhere in the 30s, believe it or not. And if all things continue in the way that they're going, and another second round pick in 2022, and then another second round pick in 2027.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sad to see Ricky Rubio go, though.
Well, no, you say that, but there's no evidence that Ricky Rubio's going anywhere. Ricky Rubio, because his contract expires, I don't think that the rule in the NBA is that you cannot trade somebody and bring them back next year. But they're not going, the Indiana Pacers are not going to employ Ricky Rubio. They're going to use that.
The salary cap space, yeah.
That's right. So he's going to stay injured the rest of the year. Next year, he's a free agent. He can go anywhere he wants. That was the problem with Rubio to begin with. It was like, holy shit, look how good this guy's playing. And it's like, there are going to be a lot of teams who want this guy, and we're not going to see him again. That's what we were saying early in the year. And then this unfortunate accident happened.
Yeah, what's
the
weird
word is
when a player is traded, and Ricky Rubio has done this throughout his career, he will post, thank you for the love, ... You guys are like my second home. not a peep from him on social media.
No, because the word is coming back from a second ACL, all right, which he's had earlier in his career, the first one. And he's going to be 32, and he's got a lot of mileage on him. But what he was doing for Cleveland was way more than anyone expected. The feeling is that he wants to come back to Cleveland, especially when the amazing part of all of this, and I'll say this again to Browns fans, is that you can blame injuries, you can complain about injuries, you can complain about COVID, you can complain about everything. The Cavaliers have been hit with all of it. Colin Sexton, 24 points a game, gone since the second game of the year, knee ripped out. Ricky Rubio, who was averaging over 14 a game and was dishing out assists like at a rate of 8 or 9 a game, gone for the season with a torn ACL. We've had to go through patches of play without Evan Mobley, our rookie, without Jarrett Allen. We've had injuries to so many people on this team. Okoro. And we just keep coming at you. And we're 11-3. We've won 11 of our last 14 games, by God. And we're doing it now without Darius Garland. How in the hell are we winning without him? And the answer is character, defensive identity. We talk about in football, I'll try to talk to the Browns fans, to make this easy for you to digest and understand. Let's bring Jim Hammer in. We do know who Jim Hammer is. Hi, Jim.
Hey, how are you all today?
Good. With the Cleveland Browns,
it's not the real Hammer, damn it. No, just kidding.
Yeah, it's the porn Hammer. Yeah,
it's new phone. Who dis, right?
Yeah, and you look
Looks
at how
like he got a haircut too.
Got a haircut. All of them, actually. Pretty much, yeah.
You look at what Kobe Altman's done for the Cavaliers. It is nothing short of amazing. Getting in on the Harden deal, getting Jarrett Allen, and then signing him to a 5-year million. What was that? It was 5-year, 100,000. What was it? 100 million. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, for Jarrett Allen, it's like
100,000. That'd be a hell of a steal.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You can't even get a bench warmer for 100,000.
Yeah. But stop and think. Who would have put 100 million into Jarrett Allen? And it turns out to be an actual boon to the franchise. Because the thing with him, and he asked to be coached up by Bickerstaff, he tends to slough off a little bit because he's kind of a laid-back guy. He's not the rah-rah guy. He's kind of a laid-back guy. You got to keep on him and keep on him and keep on him. But man, he took that All-Star snub hard. 29 and 22. And then yesterday, I mean, just a monster on the board, 17 more rebounds, 15 more points. And the Cavaliers couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in the first 3 quarters of that game. God only knows. And in the first quarter, I swear to God, I mean, if they couldn't have thrown a ball directly into Lake Erie, they couldn't do anything. But they still had the wherewithal without Darius Garland to come back and win. And football is a game where teams have an identity. And the teams that win with their backup quarterbacks generally do so because they have a physical defensive identity, like the Ravens. You see Huntley come in and win, and you say, well, geez, it's not a seamless progression from Lamar Jackson. But in the past, you could always count on the Ravens defense and the Steelers defense holding their opponents to a lower number so that they didn't have to be great all the time offensively. And we run into this, 4 times a year for the Browns. And now you've got a team in Cleveland that actually is establishing an identity defensively that is keeping games close enough so that when they do finally put their foot on the gas, they get back into these games. And it's nothing short of remarkable. And it's the turnovers from the defense. And once they get, it's like Fred Flintstone starting his car, man. The little feet get moving. I mean, the whole tempo of the game changes. Then we're shooting with flow. We're in the flow of the game. And suddenly Jetty Osmond turns hot. Then Kevin Love turns hot. And then, people start making shots that it's like, somebody standing 28 feet from the basket bends over and shoots the basketball out of their yopa, and it goes through the hoop. And it's like, it's all because the defense starts it all. Just like defensive takeaways, sacks, and football. You haven't seen that, though, Browns fans, because your team never had this kind of an identity. And what is our identity now?
Running game.
We're a running football team. But if you had to say something about our defense besides the young cornerbacks, what is the identity? You ask Joe Woods, and he says, we're kind of a balanced team. Kind of balanced.
I think the identity is you pray fucking that Myles Garrett doesn't get blown up halfway through the game.
Yeah. I mean,
how many times does he get held?
Yeah.
You know what's amazing?
Offside on 3rd and 4.
You got Dean Wade. Dean Wade, folks.
Yeah.
He comes in off the bench.
And great value, Dean Wade.
Yeah. I mean, he falls on the floor diving after balls. And, these guys come in off the bench are like a bunch of worker ants. I swear to God. And they just methodically, every one of them plays the same kind of game. Karis Levert, so that he's 6'6", and he is an off guard. He's a 2. That's going to be interesting because they may slide Okoro over to the 3 to stop the wing guy. And Karis Levert, with his length, can create problems. Now, the weakness of Levert, I've heard, is that he's not as good fighting through screens as he should be. But the good news is from an offensive perspective, he has scored 48% of his points driving to the basket. He is a guy who's not afraid and doesn't just settle for 3, thank God, because he only shoots 33% out there. But I believe he can shoot much better. I looked into deeper stats on him, and when he tries pull-up threes, he shoots nothing, man. He shoots like 28%. But when he shoots feet set behind the line, it's much higher. It goes up to like 38.4%. He's going to get more opportunities because he's going to be playing with Darius Garland. Everybody gets more opportunities. It'll be an opportunity for him to spot up instead of pull up. And that's going to be big for the Cavs. And he can play man-to-man defense, but he's going to have to get better at going through screens. That is what I hear about him. But he's an effort player. He has been hurt a couple of times in his career, one time really grotesquely when he broke his leg. And he's had his share of difficulties physically. He's 26 years old, 27, and he's coming right into the prime. And playing in Indiana, he was just kind of chucking the ball up. And that's not the way he played in Brooklyn, where he had to share the ball because of, well, Kyrie and Durant and Harden.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ball left to share after those 3?
No, there wasn't. And that's why Karis Levert had to defend, and he had to, when he got his hands the ball, to go to the basket and get fouled, do whatever he could to contribute that way.
And the one thing with the Cavs is you got the 2 bigs out there that if you're driving to the lane and they do try to cut you off, you got options,
Yeah.
They're just gonna go up there, and as well as, and that seems to be that part of it as well. The defense that particularly Mobley, but both Allen and Mobley bring to this team, that's been just such a huge difference. You know, in when this all started, they said, "Oh, they're going to sign all these 7-footers," and you're like, "Really?" Now it's like, "Damn, that was a hell of an idea," where no one saw that coming. You know.
Yeah, I think the whole organization like accelerated their greatest dreams by like 2-3 years. And anything that happens at this point is kind of uncharted territory. This team has just overachieved. But getting a Karis Levert may not on the surface be like, oh, that's a superstar. We don't have no superstar. We don't have no household name. But I can tell you this about Karis Levert. He's going to get you 15 to 17 points a night. And God, do we need it. Because if the Cleveland Cavaliers could find people who could give them, because Okoro isn't going to consistently give you that. He'll give you defense, and he'll drip blood on the court. He'll work so hard at that. But they don't have that anchor guy. They've got a 16-point-a-game guy in Mobley. They've got about a 15 to 16-point-a-night guy in Allen. You've got a 20-point-a-night guy in our point guard. Yep. And but besides that, you've got crazily inconsistent Jetty Osman off the bench, who can be.
Jesus Christ. He
can score 2. He can score 20.
It's like 2 of 8 for 5 points one night, and then 8 of 16 for 30 the next.
Yeah, well, it's you know.
I remember there was a boxing game that I used to play on the old Mattel Intellivision video.
Oh, that's a throwback.
Oh yeah, that's so old. George Plimpton did the commercials.
Oh, long before the days of Punch Out.
The right hand had a big hole in it. That's the only way you knew which one was which. And they had there was a red guy that was like strength. They had a defensive guy.
Right.
One with the gold guy had endurance, and there was a green guy that was kind of like balanced.
And there was one guy, and he was called the unpredictable fighter. So you never knew how he was going to come out of the corner. Sometimes you'd be matched up with him, and he'd knock your ass out, man. It's like, what in the fuck was that Mike Tyson shit, man? What was that? And the next time he'd lay on the ropes, and you'd knock him out in the first round. And that's Jetty Osman. He's the unpredictable basketball player, but it's all right because he gives a spark to the team. And the one thing that he will do, he will incessantly run the floor. It just goes without saying with him. He's going to work hard. All of them are a sweat-oriented team.
For slightly younger people, he's the Mark Turmel of NBA.
I think you said it right there. This is a very blue collar Cleveland kind of group. I mean, they just go out there and they just hustle. And being as young as they are, overall, in general, it's fun. God, they're fun to watch. It had been a long time since I watched an entire NBA game. I find myself watching entire games now. Usually I'd like tune in the fourth quarter and, right. How much are they down by,
Right. I'm not going to sit around and watch
that. Yeah.
Now when they're down by 14 points, it's like, I'm sitting in. I'm going to stay to the end on this one.
Because you just don't know what's going to happen. It's so much fun. It's just, good grief. I haven't had fun watching basketball like that in a long time. And this is, and it's a lot of it is that philosophy of the team. They're just a bunch of guys that just go out there and scrap. So,
but the thing is, Darius Garland is a blooming talent, and Jared Allen is a beast. And when he is properly motivated, can really do a very traditional center's job, not this new version of the NBA center, but and then you've got Mobley, who God only knows what the ceiling is on this guy, but he's serious-minded and he's going to work hard. He's going to get stronger, and that will be something to behold. We've actually got a core of players, and with Levert coming on board, my personal feeling is there's one more thing that's probably going to get done. The reason that there wasn't an official announcement on Levert, I mean, it got reported, of course, by Adam Schefter and no, who was it?
With the
Basketball
H,
guy.
the one with the H. Wojnarowski, is that what it was?
Woj, yeah.
Woj did it.
And once
Yeah.
Woj announces it, it's fact. But the Cavaliers weren't going to phone it in because they need the DP, the player exception, on Rubio. That DPE, they can't trade it away officially, and they're not going to get it if they trade it away without submitting that to the league. And that's about $4.3 million. So that's something. And and I'm reading what Peter's writing here about Brandon Ingram. I know there's a lot of people who want a guy who's a certain name, and I know that Brandon Ingram is a fine basketball player, but you got to be careful what kind of surgery you do, because you don't want to rip the soul out of a team by dumping a bunch of players to get a name guy, because you're winning. And I'll be honest with you, you're going to get into the playoffs, you're not going to get a single call, and they're going to fuck you with the drive-through. I get that. I take that as just the way the game is. But what I can't stand is the Indians, or the Guardians. I can't stand a team that refuses to bring in corner infielders for a decade, that refuses to give me corner outfielders with power for a decade, who constantly will loan, borrow somebody like Carlos Santana 3 times or Encarnacion, but will never find its own Tommy or Albert Bell in its own minor league system. I really get bored with the Guardians because, quite honestly, they're not trying to win. One thing I can say,
team.
I'm sorry?
They're a double-A team.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not as bad. It's not as bad as what I grew up with. Okay, when all those guys went to the Yankees and they were winning championships, and you're going, a third of the starting players were former Indians, and that was Greg Nettles and Chris Chambliss and Gamble, and you're just like, Jesus sucks.
Well, yeah. I mean, but every year it's like we come off Corey Kluber, who just got old, and who now can't throw more than 89 miles an hour. We Charlie Nagy'd him, and we're famous for that. The Indians organization will throw the arms out of all of their good starting pitchers by throwing them way too many innings. Brian Shaw them to death. You say, that's what the organization does. And so now we have a new generation of pitchers, and we're going to try to live off the pitching again, and it never fucking works. The team can't hit, it can't make contact, and nobody's doing a goddamn thing about it. The Cavaliers, on the other hand, I can say this. Dan Gilbert, politically and otherwise, never was my favorite guy, but he's put money into the team, and he has never just surrendered. We've had lean years, but who wouldn't have lean years when LeBron James leaves, when Kyrie Irving gets out of town? How do you overcome that? And the answer is, and then Kevin Love breaks down physically. How do you, in Cleveland, pull the trigger to bring in anywhere near comparable players? And you can't. But he never quit trying, and they've made the right draft pick. I watched Cade Cunningham play, a fine athletic player. Got to have to learn how to finish at the rim a whole lot better. And the other guy, help me here. Green, is that his name? Jalen Green? I'm getting nothing but silence.
Who are you talking
You're
about?
getting crickets.
Well,
You're getting
I'm trying to
crickets
pull
from me.
Yeah,
Who's
and
that?
he
Where's,
trying to
where's
block
Steven
from
when we
Houston.
need
I
him,
think
right?
he plays for Houston.
Oh, the rookie from this year.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jalen Green. Yes.
And you know, there's a guy who's, you know, of course he's playing with Houston. And I know Houston beat us, and that didn't sit well with me. But you know, he can again get hot, but he's not. He's athletic, and so is Darius Miles. There are a lot of athletic people who end up not succeeding in the NBA. We got a guy who partially looks like he's all arms and legs. Evan Mobley, when I first saw him, I said, "What is he? Is he a flamingo?"
I was
I
like,
mean,
feed that guy a sandwich, man.
yeah.
Oh my God, Jalen
the
Green is
britches.
only 19 years old.
That's it.
I think that's the key to it right there, Brian. You nailed it there. He's not even mature yet.
No.
So when you talked about it, Moo, about saying his upside, we don't even know what it's going to be. That's for real. I mean,
Well, and
you know, if he can stay healthy in 3 or 4 more years, good grief. You know, you don't know.
Well, the thing
and his
is,
backup is even 19 years old.
yeah, I mean, 1 year at USC, and he brought USC basketball into the college playoffs, right? I mean, this guy, when they were before the season began, they asked him, "Where are you most comfortable?" And he goes, "At the elbow." And they said, "Okay, that's where we're going to play you," because he didn't know what to do. He's 19 years old. I mean, what in the hell?
Well,
1 minute you're playing high school basketball, then you're playing 1 year of college basketball, then all of a sudden you're thrown in ruthlessly with big, mature men who know how to play the game they're playing. This young man, to be very honest with you, he doesn't really know what he's doing yet. And he's still delivering 16 and 8 with about 2 blocks a game. And he doesn't really know exactly where he needs to be at all times. You can see that he doesn't handle the ball well. He's easily stripped. If he starts backing down the lane, he doesn't have the timing down. Guys will double him and he won't see it coming and they'll knock the ball away from him. He's young.
Well,
But-
and it's not like you're picking a European player who's 19 and playing pro ball for the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, yeah,
adults.
that's exactly Ricky Rubio. I mean, that was the guy. That's when you said he's 32 and has a lot of miles on him. He started at 16 in Spain. I mean, he was playing in that. He had 3 years in the league before he came to the NBA.
I mean, it's to me, watching these guys and
Holy shit,
Okoro.
they still have DJ Augustine on that team? I remember
Yep.
him playing in the tournament.
You got Okoro who really can't shoot the ball from the perimeter, and they've worked on it during last offseason. It just hasn't come to fruition. He's solid in transition, getting to the basket, but he's behind the arc. It's just too flat a shot. It's just not accurate. But boy, he's a great defender. So, you've got guys who are young and who are still developing, and they're not finished, products.
Well, but and they have a chance to gel their talents together and really like the late 80s Cavs did.
Yeah, well, it's all about ball sharing, ball movement. Anybody can be the star in a given night. Kevin Love has rejuvenated his career coming off the bench and but he's giving energy. I don't mean just by scoring the basketball, but I mean, he still rebounds. And his body is old, but he's drawing charges. He's doing smart veteran things, and these young players are watching what he's doing and learning. And that's a huge part of the game. And that's what Rubio was giving to Garland. It's amazing to think that Browns fans won't get behind the Cleveland Cavaliers. It just, or at least a segment of Browns fans, because they're so narrow and parochial in their thinking that they can't recognize a team that is everything that their football team should want to be and aspire to. I've done this show for 18 years, and I'll tell you, 18 years, the Cavaliers have given me a lot more reason to smile than the Cleveland Browns. I hang in there because I'm a fan, and I don't want to start all over again, and I don't care what you all, the gang of however many who want to just start all over with a new quarterback and go through that nonsense all over again. You know, you just, sometimes the pieces come and you don't, you know, it's like Jamar Chase coming to Cincinnati. I mean, that right there, do you know how much that means to the Bengals? If he were not on the field, you think that T. Higgins would be able to handle double coverage? I don't think so. I mean,
Not a chance in hell.
no.
Well, and the worst part about that is when they picked that, and I'm thinking, why aren't they getting a lineman? Because they desperately need to keep Joe Burrow healthy. Well, you know what else kept Joe Burrow healthy? Having wide receivers that were open to throw to.
That's right.
What a freaking plan!
And who hung on to the fucking football?
Oh dear God, what's that? What's that about?
What's that novel concept?
Yeah. So I hope I've answered General Dog's question, because I do want to move on to something else. This whole thing, and I told you about Hugh Jackson.
Yeah, that's
He's changing his story.
I thought
and
you mispronounced that. Isn't it Hui?
Not
Yeah, it's
anymore.
right.
He's not even revolutionary. He's just a cocksucker. And you know something? He is of no race whatsoever. He is just a cocksucker. The guy is just, I mean, absolutely hateful guy. And I don't know what his deal is, except now he's decided to change his mind and say, no, they didn't pay me to lose exactly, but I'll make the details available to you at the right time. And you know what the right time will be? When Grambling State pops a cap in his ass and fires him. That'll be the time that Hui will have nothing left but that. So it's disturbing. But in the midst of all of this and what's going on with Brian Flores, who I think all of us agree that Brian Flores is committed professional suicide, even if changes are made.
The Saints have hired Dennis Allen as their head coach, and as well as the Texans with Lovie Smith. That means there are no more open jobs in the NFL.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what you do this little thing, and Lovie Smith has been recycled more than the plastic bottles I drink from. And it's not that Lovie Smith is a bad coach. Lovie Smith will give you a great defense with no idea how to score points. All right? Mm-hmm. That's what Lovie Smith will give you. Now, who's the guy who took the Saints job, Tony?
Their defense, the Saints defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Defensive coordinator.
Yeah, they hired with.
In the age, I mean, what do you think Eric Bieniemy is saying? Do you think he's like? Do you think he's just?
I think he's saying, "I'll skip all these goddamn jobs and I'll just take over when the old man finally leaves."
He hopes.
What about Byron Leftwich? I thought he was one of the high fucking.
I really thought he was going to end up with the Houston job.
Yeah.
And yeah, Peter, you just beat me to it by about 30 seconds. That's all. Of course, I could talk about it, but I mean, the thing is ridiculous. Roger Goodell comes out with a generic statement, and it's the typical PR statement, you know. And what he says, in essence, and I don't have the exact script in front of me, but he says we do have the rules in place. We just haven't really done a very good job with them. So 32 wealthy men who are in step not to hire black head coaches. And
They just
why do you
hired
think
Lovie
that?
Smith.
Yeah, well,
Unless you're
why
saying
do
that
you?
he's not black.
Well, I told you that there will be another Romeo Crennel. Well, that's what Lovie Smith is, and it's not to denigrate these men because I'm sure they're fine gentlemen. But where are the young up and comers? Where's the new? There was Sidney Poitier for a generation in the '60s, right? And then we ended up with Denzel Washington in the '90s and early 2000s, and it's like,
Started on St. Elsewhere.
Yep. And I'm sitting here saying, where are the young up and comers? I don't, I know what Lovie Smith's going to give his team, and that's all well and good. He's a defensive coordinator. He's never proven in his experience that he's ever put a good offensive product on the field. And I don't know. The enemy is 51 years old, and he might die before Andy Reid. I mean, he's got a job, yes, but where are the young faces coming up? We talk about the Kevin O'Connells, and we talk about the Kevin Stefanskis, and Kevin Arnold from the Wonder Years. He's going to be brought in as well. I honestly, I don't. Actually, Kevin Arnold, Ziffles the Pig, might move into that situation.
Well, that would cross off the Yenta box on the old list.
Yeah, but I don't see the new faces. I don't see the new blood coming in. And the league looks an awful lot like the stodgy owners who own the teams. I mean, that's what the league looks like. That's what it plays like. There's no progressive thinking involved. It's all just very calculated that you're better off hiring a guy who knows how to play the game. I mean, Lovey's been around the block a lot. And I don't mean Thurston Howell's wife either. I mean Lovie Smith. Been around the block a lot. He knows how the game's played. And just like Romeo Crennel knew how the game was played. And, you think that the Houston Texans, I mean, what do they need? Well, they're going to get a big heaping helping of discipline. But offensively, wasn't that the problem? Am I missing something here? I mean, I don't see Steven. Steven is not on the show going, oh, yeah, we got Lovie Smith, I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth, but the NFL wanted to shut people up. So the last two openings went to African-American men, and we'll move on from there. Don't worry. Phone call gets put in. You can fire him in a year or two. Two. Give him 2 years. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So that nothing amazes me when it comes to the NFL. Hugh Jackson, I just want to see him get terminated at Grambling State. That's what I want to see. And so what, the Dolphins have hired the 49ers offensive coordinator?
Yeah, have you seen what he looked like? Wow.
Do you know that he refers to himself as multiracial?
Yeah, where?
He is.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. I don't know what it is.
Not by looking at
He's
him.
got a. I think it was a black grandfather or something.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then he's got something else. So
Wasn't that
He's the
Elizabeth Warren's thing?
He's the whitest person I've ever
No,
seen, and I'm
he's-
currently on Moohead Radio. Like,
he is more black than Elizabeth Warren is Native American.
I understand.
here
But
we
I mean,
go. Here we
wasn't
go.
that the argument? I mean, they gave him
Well,
a
I have
4-year
really high
contract.
well, in her case, it was I have really. My grandmother said I have really high cheekbones, so I must have some Native American blood. That was her whole premise for, defrauding people for jobs.
Well, it was just ridiculous. Now, you know what the amazing thing is about after the whole firing of Brian Flores is now they have to go ahead and hire a multiracial guy. And Who was the other guy who was the other finalist? Do you know who the other finalist for the Miami head coaching job was?
Not offhand, no.
Kellen Moore, the Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator, who totally fucked up. Make it stop, dear God.
It was a hot shit name until that fucking play.
Yeah, well, I mean, but he was the other finalist for the job, and he'll get hired somewhere next year, I imagine. I
Well,
don't
they'll
know.
retread. Somebody will retread fucking Todd Bowles too. He'll end up with a job.
And while we're talking about other sports, the whole Major League Baseball mess between the union and the owners
Yeah,
is
there's not going to be a season this year.
yeah. But here's the latest thing. Major League Baseball stops testing its players for steroids after 20 years. It stopped testing players for the first time due to the expiration of the sports drug agreement, which was part, the joint drug program. What a great name, joint drug program. That sounds appropriate.
Sounds like something out of fucking DC.
Yeah, the halt in testing is a casualty of the sports lockout. It should be a major concern to all those who value fair play, Travis Tigert, chief executive officer of the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, said on Monday, but there is no fair play and integrity in Major League Baseball, and there never was. Again, Major League Baseball lags behind, in my mind. I think that there is a vital audience for NBA basketball and for NFL football. Very passionate, vociferous group. Major League Baseball, it's the old guys with the scorecards. Honest to God, I don't see that many young people getting all whipped up about Major League Baseball.
Yes, Rick, we're talking to you.
No, I mean, and Rick knows what I'm saying. It's not like you see sellout situations around Major League Baseball. It's just a slow-moving game which seems to get in its own way a whole hell of a lot more than the other sports. They have these lockouts and we have all kinds of bullshit. Major League Baseball, And then we have this back in the NFL as part of the new Roger Goodell public relations position.
Whoa.
Yes.
Breaking news.
Yeah, I'm almost afraid to ask what.
We're talking about Bieniemy. For Tom Pelissero, his contract is expiring, which means he is currently a free agent. He might not even be coaching.
For what? Yeah. They're just going to use against him what he did when he was 20 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I knew that whole thing about waiting for Andy Reid didn't make any sense. I mean, you could just see him arc and then hit the other side of the mountain. The demand isn't there for him. And I'm sure that there's a reason why. So at any rate, I think that's too bad. The NFL is issuing a significant call to action after high injury rates on special teams. Now, can you believe this? Didn't they get rid of the fucking wedge? Why don't they just go fuck themselves?
Yeah.
The high injury rates on special teams. You're telling me that the lowest income group of players who they can put on the field to be gunners, this terminology, gunners, whoever it was who's been dying in all these riots in Kenosha were gunners. There are people on the front lines who are just running in the bullets, right? And this is what being on special teams, that's what it is, man. It's the same thing. You're just a gunner going down the field as fast as you could run. You're going to get blindsided. You're going to get, concussions. And it's already been proven that special teams players were at greater risk. Why don't they just get rid of the whole thing of just get rid of the kicking aspect of the game?
No.
So I really don't know. I really honestly don't know. So at any rate, this is all, it's just like, this is what Brian would call the woke NFL. It's like, we have a problem.
Yeah.
We better address some of these problems, at least in speeches.
And then, but the fix is always worse than the fucking thing they were trying to fix in the first place.
That appears to be the case, and it puts people in more danger. It always reminded.
There's like the helmet to helmet thing, and then they make all these exceptions, and then Baker Mayfield gets clearly almost decapitated, and then there's no flag. Oh, he's a runner, so he was allowed to be hit like that.
Well, it was like headgear in boxing. Oh, we're doing that to be safer for the fighters, and it caused more concussive activity than going without it. So at any rate, I wanted to end up the show. We talk a lot about, the theoreticals of involving, racial equality in professional sports. There were two incredible stories that you wouldn't hear on other sports podcasts. Do you know who Harold Varner III is?
No.
He's 31 years old and he's from Akron, Ohio. All right. And he's African American and he's a golfer. All right.
Huh. Okay.
He's not Tiger Woods, and he certainly not the great name of the game. He was in a golf tournament, the Saudi International, and it was a big enough tournament that he and Bubba Watson, who's a damn good golfer, were kind of duking it out in the final round. And he makes a 92-foot putt on the final hole to score an eagle to win the tournament. All right.
I saw that. What a fucking fantastic putt.
I mean, and there's got to be some luck involved in that too. But what a glorious moment. If we never hear from Harold Varner III, I want to at least say that, yeah, there are still really fun, great stories that are happening in sports that we can celebrate, that we can all agree upon, where somebody just has their moment in the sun. And we shouldn't worry too much about whether they're black, white, or whatever. I mean, in skating, we had a 15-year-old Russian gal who just made the first quad jump in women's figure skating in history and performed two of them in the same routine, free skate. I mean, 15. Nobody had done it before, and a 15-year-old's doing it.
And the sad part of it is you don't hear about it because these are the least promoted Olympics I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are people who have legitimate stories to tell than there are professional athletes who get involved in the Olympics. But again, I think what a great story. And then there's the last one. Surfing. I don't know shit about surfing, all right? Except that everybody's gone surfing. That's all I know. And I know that a Woody was a car and not a hard-on. Okay, that's about all I know about surfing. And the youngest man to ever win a professional surfing event was a guy named Kelly Slater. And
Yep.
he won when he was 20 years old.
Yep.
Right? Zoom to today, and at a Hawaii national big time surfing event, the number one guy is 22 years old, and his name is eluding me because I'm not a surfing guy, right? I'm a Jew. You know, if they served me a corned beef sandwich on rye on a surfboard, that would be the closest I would get to a surfboard. All right. So 22-year-old guy is the number one guy. He's going to win this tournament. And one last chance for Kelly Slater. Except Kelly Slater's 50 years old now. He's African American.
Yep.
Kelly Slater. No, he's tanned.
He's a white guy from Malibu.
I know. And it's funny because people are saying to me, is that guy an African American? Yeah, he is.
Let's move on.
I thought they were afraid of water. No. Kelly Slater at 50 years of age,
man.
on his last run, catches a wave and nails it and wins. He's now the youngest man ever, and now he's the oldest man ever. That's what you call GOAT in surfing. So, stories you don't hear on sports podcasts that you should, because a 50-year-old man winning, you can't put that into words. I mean, I'm 64 and I remember what I felt like at 50, and Do you know what kind of condition that man has to be in? But that he is still competing at that high a level? Remarkable stuff. So I wanted to finish the show with an uplifting thing and say, yeah, and I give a fuck about that stuff too, because the human part of athletics is the most important part. The part I relate to, the competitive fire. That's what I relate to. I want my teams to have competitive fire. I don't need to have the biggest name athletes. I don't have to fire my quarterback to try to bring in a bigger name quarterback. I don't have to do that. I don't have to get rid of, dice up my Cleveland Cavaliers to bring in, whether it's Brandon Ingram, whether it's James Ingram, just once.
There we go.
You just don't need to do that. I want teams that play together, and it's the emotional aspect that I connect to, the competitive drive. That's what I relate to. So that's what my podcast will relate to.
Hey, did anybody talk about Larry Ogunjobi? Do you know his status?
He's African American.
I thought he was going to be playing.
I think he's single. I don't know.
I don't know what the context of the question is, Titosh. What is his status? I don't know. He's
Playing in the Super Bowl for the Bengals? No.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
I don't know. I really don't know.
All right. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're going to have a little show where you discuss how much Beckham's career has taken off since he's left the Browns. And all
Oh
that.
no, Ogunjobi's out for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, too bad.
Yeah. And really, in this in-between time, I'm not all that excited about the Super Bowl either, to be very honest with you. This is a Northeast Ohio sports talk show, and 18 years worth of it, and we'll talk about who's going to win the Super Bowl, but I'm not going to get into any great length about that. So I got to get out of here because I got to eat my dinner. And thanks, T-Tosh. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Tony. And thank you, General Dog, for asking such a pertinent question that aroused my interest. We'll be back again on Friday to talk more about sports that matter.
Cool.
Enjoy
and
the
where we
replay,
have an
King.
active season going on. Until
See y'all
next
later.
time, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
Ooh.
Bye.
Bye.